something that hasn't happened. HM, paging HM.
DNG.
Hussein, come on up here. We can't start without you.
DNG.
So we're here today to, that's all right, we're here to announce a very exciting development in the history of the Karachi Literature Festival, which is that for the first time in the festival's 7 years of inception, a new prize is being announced today, this evening. And this prize is being sponsored by our friends at the Consulate General of Italy in Karachi. Today I have with me the Consul General of Italy, Mr. Gianluca Rubagotti, and he will be telling us about this prize, which is a translation prize. So we are looking for an emerging Pakistani writer to have the opportunity to not only translate panel is the well-known, the famous H.M. Naqvi, right at the end, the author of Homeboy, who is the winner of the DS. What we're going to do is have our two guests technical rules of the prize, so that all the writers out there who want to participate will know exactly what they have to do. After that, we'll have a conversation. We'll have a conversation about publishing and Italy and Pakistan and literature and how literature works as conversation and as diplomacy. We'll talk to HM about his experience being published in Italy and what he thinks about translations, and how they work both ways, and how they should work both ways. After that, if we have time, we'll have a short question and answer session from those of you that want to know more. So let us get started. Please have a round of applause for my guests.
First of all, let me convey to you the regards of His Excellency Stefano Pontecorvo, the Ambassador of Italy in Islamabad, who was supposed to be here, but he's some sort of collateral damage to a certain strike which is going on in these days.
We won't name the strike or the people involved,
so,
to be diplomatic.
So I'm here, and I'm happy to be here with you to introduce, to launch officially Italy Reads Pakistan, award by Metropolis Asia and Consulate of Italy in Karachi, which is, as the moderator rightly said, the first project of this kind. I like to call it a journey, as I said also this morning, because it's a process which takes time, and it's a journey with a meaning. Kinds of awards that you can think of, and the first kind of award that could come to your mind is like we select something, we give some money, and that's it. That's, of course, is a very good idea, but at the end we thought that we wanted to do something else. We didn't want to benefit just one person. So we thought that Italy and Pakistan, although they are two friendly countries, there are still many ways in which we can improve the knowledge of each other. And this is even more important if you consider, and I'm sure most of you are unaware of this, that in continental Europe, which means Europe minus the UK, the highest number of Pakistanis, the biggest Pakistani community is in Italy. So we thought this is something we have to build on. And unfortunately, it's always difficult to get an idea of a country which is far away only through international media. So the whole idea was, in Italy we have a market, of course, for books, but most of Italians would read in Italian language and not in English. So the idea was, we select somebody here in Pakistan and we give him or her the chance of being present in each and every house of Italy. And this will benefit not just one person, but two whole countries, Italy and Pakistan. So we identified in Metropoli d'Asia the perfect partner, because Andrea Berrini has a well-established knowledge of Asia, and when I mentioned to him the possibility of doing something for Pakistan, he was really thrilled, because he's aware of the vibrant literary scene that you have here. And the second peculiarity of this award that I would like to stress is that we are not aiming at somebody who is already well established, but we would like to give this opportunity to a young and upcoming writer. So the criteria are quite selective, are more selective compared to other awards, because, for instance, without entering too much in details, it will be for a Pakistani citizen below a certain age who has written a novel and not other kind of literary production. And probably the most important part is that he or she has not been published abroad and may have been published in Pakistan, but only in the last 2 years and 2 months, which means 2016, 15, and 14.
So HMU and I are out. We can't enter this prize, that means.
Well, there will be a few more weeks to submit, so if you have a new work, maybe you can.
That's wonderful. And may I ask at this point, Andrea, tell me how you got involved. We've heard it from the official side, but I'd like to hear from you as a publisher. How did you decide to get involved with this enterprise?
Well, I met Mr. Rubagotti before in other places in Asia, and he is aware that this is something that my publishing house already has tried, has done in different countries. Metropoli d'Asia is a very particular publishing house. I decided that I was interested, I was personally interested in go and looking for new writers, younger writers in new and young Asia. Asia has been changing a lot in the last 10 years. We have now metropolis. We have now a middle class in this metropolis which is so similar in his attitude, in his in their way of living to us, and this is the kind of literature and the fiction that we are looking for. In other countries, we started like that. I like the words of Mr. Rubagotti, a journey. What Metropoli d'Asia has done in the last 8-9 years now is exploring countries. And I'm happy now to start my exploration, our exploration in Pakistan. We have been mainly concentrated in Far East countries, in China, Southeast countries. We have published from India, from Bangladesh, and now we can open at last the Pakistani file.
Most people would be afraid to come explore Pakistan. Most people would be quite frightened to come and explore Pakistan.
Not us.
Not us. I mean, I don't see any kind of danger here. I also think that the reason to be a writer and the reason to be a fiction publisher is to go beyond the news and the media, because Italians receive in my opinion, a bad information about what is happening in all those countries. It's just a few words, few slogans, what comes to the news. Yes, of course, if there is a war, is in first page, but the common life of people is not in first page of a newspaper.
Well, when I said most people would be too afraid, I was only half joking about the physical danger. But what I mean is that there seems to be, and especially today, the feeling that there is nothing in common between the Western European countries and our Eastern Muslim countries. There seems to be great fear about this part of the world, misunderstanding, a real lack of communication. And I wanted to ask you how could this prize counter that?
Well, my prize will not give a solution to big problems in the world. But, as I told you, I think a major problem in this world now, it is a world that changed not only because so many new countries arose and are now on the scene. I remember 10, 15 years ago we have G8, the big countries in the world. Now we have G20. It is something new,
Correct.
Of course. This is a change that I would like to explore. But another change is the quantity of information we have on different devices and media. And this quantity of information, in my opinion, is not leading to a better knowledge of what is happening outside my door. Outside my door. The simplification, the way the media simplify the reality is great, absolutely. When I told my friends I'm living to Karachi, I will participate to a Karachi Literary Festival, they were scared. In those countries something happened. No, my friend, you just open the newspaper and see and look words about Pakistan when something bad happened. And this kind of situation is happening even in Italy. If you by chance, but really by chance, have 3 or 4 major car accidents in a week, you will have the media talking about that for months. I think fiction, I think literature, books, longer narration, storytelling where the reader or the listener can have time to understand, to listen, is the best way to give back to us, to all of us, the sense of what is real and what is new.
That's very well said, and thank you for that. Going back to the prize, I want to ask HM a question. When you were starting out as a young writer, emerging writer, there was no prize of this sort. But what would it have meant to you if this prize had been around when you were starting? Would you have entered? And what would you have thought about what this prize could have done for you as a young Pakistani writer?
You know, I have, as a young writer...
But you're still young, of course.
I'm indeed very young. The Consul General is younger than me.
Yes, he's right.
As a young writer, as a young reader, I was weaned on the works of novelists that include Italo Calvino and Umberto Eco, and Italian cinema has played a role in shaping my aesthetic consciousness. I mean, you cannot escape the influence of Fellini. And of course, this is work that was produced some years ago, decades ago, half a century ago. But Italian cinema I continue to watch. I was telling Gianluca that I watch movies such as The Great Beauty and Il Divo, about the sort of very complicated Italian political machinery in the 80s. And so, although it would seem that there is a divergence or a distance between these, Italy and Pakistan, as far as I'm concerned, as an artist is concerned, there isn't much, because artists have the similar anxieties, and countries work in many similar ways. The political ecosystem of Italy in the 80s seems very familiar to me as a Pakistani. And so I would be thrilled to share my anxieties, my concerns as a human being, as a novelist, in a place like Italy, as a reciprocal. It's a reciprocal sort of thing. I mean, I have been influenced, and it'd be nice that my words would have some resonance.
A conversation, almost.
A conversation. So Homeboy was, luckily picked up by El Saggiatore, which is, I understand, a very notable publishing house.
Yes, it is.
And in my small way, perhaps there are Italians who have read Homeboy and who share my worldview, and in that way, in that way, humanize us in a way that the papers may not. Headlines are not meant to humanize; they're meant to alarm and
Very true.
And so it would be fabulous. It would absolutely be fabulous.
Can we take a look at your Italian version of Homeboy? Have you brought it with you?
I actually have, and as an exercise, I'd like to, we haven't spoken about this, but I'd like to do a live experiment, a live exercise on stage. I'd like to read 2 paragraphs from the language that Homeboy was written in English, and then I would ask one of you to read 2 paragraphs from the Italian version, so that we can have a sense of the musicality of Italian, and perhaps some sort of connection between the two. Would you agree to that exercise?
Let's do it. Let's be creative.
So, Homeboy is set in New York at the turn of the 21st century, and it deals with 3 young men who are negotiating a very changed New York after the sort of the tragedy of 9/11. So this novel contends with this sort of context. So it begins somewhat jarringly. We become Japs, Jews, niggers. We weren't before. We fancied ourselves boulevardiers, raconteurs, Renaissance men, AC, Jimbo and me. We were self-invented and self-made and certain we had our fingers on the pulse of the great global dialectic. We surveyed the Times and the Post and other treatises of mainstream discourse on a daily basis, consulted the Voice weekly, and often leafed through other publications with more discriminating audiences such as Big Butt. Save Jimbo, who wasn't a big reader, we had read the Russians, the post-colonial canon, but were taken by the brash, boisterous voices of contemporary fiction. We watched nature documentaries and variety shows on Telemundo, and generally did not follow sports except when Pakistan played India in cricket. We listened to Nusrat and the new generation of native rockers, as well as old school gangster rap, but were underwhelmed by hip-hop's hegemony. And we slummed in secret cantons of Central Park, avoided the meatpacking district, often dined on Nehari in Jackson Heights. We weren't rich, we weren't poor, we had extravagant footwear but no real estate. We weren't from but avoided pork, me on principle and Jimbo because of habit, though AC's vigorous atheism allowed him extensive culinary latitude. And drank everywhere, some more than others, celebrating ourselves with wild turkey with water, among the company of women, black, oriental, and denizens of the Caucasian nation alike. It's a jarring beginning.
I love it.
And I would ask if you could for the first time, I have never heard this read out in Italian, so it's a personal exercise.
It's very moving to hear your own work read in a different language
Yes.
by a native speaker. I'm sure you've read it out loud by yourself and tried to see.
Would you mind me to read the whole 2 pages?
I don't mind at all.
I don't think many people here can understand
Yes,
Italian. Eravamo diventati musi gialli, ebrei di merda, negri fottuti. Prima non lo eravamo. Ci immaginavamo bon vivant, cantastorie, uomini del Rinascimento, io e Jimbo. Ci eravamo quasi tutti inventati e fatti da noi ed eravamo sicuri di avere in pugno una grande dialettica globale. Studiavamo quotidianamente il Times e il Post e altri trattati di retorica tradizionale sullo stato della società. Consultavamo ogni settimana il Voice e sfogliavamo con assiduità altre pubblicazioni rivolte a un target più selettivo come TAE o Big Butt. A parte Jimbo, che non era un gran lettore, conoscevamo i classici russi, il canone letterario postcoloniale, ma ci entusiasmavano le voci esuberanti e chiassose della narrativa americana contemporanea. Alla TV guardavamo i documentari sulla natura e varietà di Telemundo e in genere non seguivamo lo sport, tranne quando il Pakistan giocava contro l'India a cricket o i Knicks arrivavano ai playoff. Ascoltavamo Nusrat e le nuove generazioni di rocker indigeni, oltre al gangster rap della vecchia scuola, tanto che eravamo rinomati per intonare senza preavviso «Viene da Compton, pazzo figlio di puttana, si chiama Ice Cube, della Niggas with Attitudes». Ma non ci entusiasmava più di tanto l'egemonia culturale dell'hip hop, per quanto Jimbo fosse notoriamente un apologeta delle composizioni trimetriche di Eminem e paragonasse spesso i ritmi dell'hip hop a quelli delle bande mercanti kurde. E ci dedicavamo a scorrerie negli anfratti segreti di Central Park, tenendoci fuori dal Meatpacking District, e andavamo spesso a cena a Jackson Heights. Non eravamo ricchi ma neanche poveri. Per capirci, avevamo scarpe costose, ma nessuna proprietà immobiliare. Non eravamo osservanti, ma evitavamo la carne di maiale, io per principio e Jimbo per abitudine, anche se AC, nel suo fervente ateismo, si concedeva ampio spazio di manovra culinaria e bevevamo dappertutto, in alcuni posti più che in altri, brindando a noi 3 con vodka on the rocks o wild turkey con acqua, e la birra l'avevo scoperta in giugno, in compagnia di donne nere, asiatiche e bianche senza distinzioni.
Wonderful, thank you. Thank you.
Good.
I wonder why they didn't translate big butt into Italian. I wonder why that was left in English. But that leads me to my question. You, as the publisher, work with translators. What will it take for a translator to get it right? The nuance of a Pakistani writing in English, conveying very Pakistani ideas, attitudes, feelings, experiences, but in English. And how do you bring that into Italian in a way that Italian readers can relate? What is this magic?
Well, first of all, I have to say that our award is not just for literature in English. We would consider literature in Urdu.
That's correct.
How a translator can be the job, don't ask me. I'm not a translator, and I understand how difficult is a translator job, because it is a way to become someone else. The translator of our friend must become him, must read the book, understand his feelings, his voice. There is a voice in a writer, and you must be able to translate not just translate, to transfer this voice, this intonation from a language to another. And then there is a big job inside the publishing house, because it's not enough, because you have to interact with the translator and tell him or her, maybe this is a real a real journey from the writer to our language, but in this way the reader is not aware of what really the writer wish to express. I think translating a book is something very difficult. I would like all the people in the world can speak the same language. I don't think English can be the language for all the people in this world. I prefer a multiplicity of words and cultures, but really, translation is...
We could all learn Italian like Jhumpa Lahiri and just write in Italian from now on.
Yeah, she can. I have my editor in Metropoli d'Asia. I have an editor who is very good in working on the text of a translated work in Italian. Yeah. She is currently writing a novel in French.
Wow. Wow.
Bina, you had mentioned your experience with being translated into Germany, and you had to, I guess, generate a list, a glossary for...
Well, I was actually going to ask you to describe your experience. What was it like for you being translated? How much interaction was there between you and the translator? What went on for you? And then I'll say what went on for me.
Homeboy was translated into a number of languages.
How many?
May I ask you, which was the first one?
It was published by Random House in the US first, and then it was published by HarperCollins in the subcontinent. Then it was published by Rocco in Brazil and Portugal, and Kiwi in Germany, El Saggiatore in Italy. And I might be forgetting some others.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, it's I personally feel that one has to somewhat cede control, and one cannot be anxious about the process, because there are things that one can control and there are things that it can't. I don't know what the Portuguese sounds like, and they changed the title of the book to Meu Irmão, which means my brother. Now, different from Homeboy, the Italian publication kept it Homeboy. And there was some, Homeboy is it's somewhat difficult to translate. It's a little stylistically involved. and there were some queries from El Saggiatore about certain turns of the phrase and what I meant, because I very consciously invoked an American vernacular to write about America at a particular time of history. I couldn't invoke Shakespeare or our poets, Ghalib, writing about Pakistanis in New York. So I had to invoke a local ethos and draw on the big boisterous voices of American fiction. So I would get queries about NWA, the rappers that are invoked on the first page, and what does that mean? And NWA were very hostile, given the hostility of growing up in poor parts of Los Angeles. They were very hostile to the police. They were very hostile to the establishment. They were very hostile to Americana. And so I had to explain this when in emails to some of my translators.
Did you ask them to listen to NWA? To
I
would have.
That's an excellent idea.
Next time.
Next time. I will not be invoking NWA in my next novel. It's set in Karachi and dramatically different. So these sorts of issues come up, and the issues were about particular the resonance of particular cultural markers in contemporary American discourse.
Right.
I don't know if that makes sense.
So that was the particular challenge for Homeboy. And then you asked me about my novel, and I've actually had 2 published in Italy as well. The first was Slum Child, which did very well in Italy, published as La bambina che non poteva sognare. And the second was A Season for Martyrs, which was also published in Italy as Il bambino che credeva nella libertà. And I've probably pronounced that just like Spanish because I don't know Italian very well. But what they did with me was they actually asked me if I would be all right with a glossary of terms. And this is a loaded question because there are a lot of South Asian writers and diaspora writers and who feel that there should not be this idea of the glossary, that it's patronizing, that it's a bit condescending, that it's, these are our words and they don't need to be explained in such a way. But for me personally, I had no problem with it. I said, it's fine, do it. If it helps the reader to understand better, please be my guest. So they did that for, I think both books have glossaries, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, they do. And so, H.M., would you have been will you be upset if your Italian translator for your next novel wants a glossary?
I will never be upset with an Italian translator.
No, I asked the question the wrong way. What do you feel about the issue of should vernacular be explained and over-explained? What do you think? In the UK, I think it wouldn't need to be because there is such a big Asian population. But a country like Italy, well, Italy has a huge Pakistani population as well.
I think philosophically speaking, I think that the more readable the book is, more readable. So the sentence should suggest a meaning for a word that is foreign to somebody's ear. So I have a preference of the work speaking for itself, but in principle, I have no problem with glossaries. It helps the reader's experience.
It's difficult because either you do the glossary or you do a sentence like, he ate a delicious paratha, the flat, fried, round bread that every Pakistani loves. That's also over-explanation in a way. So it's a fine balance.
There's no doubt about it.
Andrea, would you like to say something about that?
This is a major fight inside publishing houses in Italy and in Europe. I am on the side, or my personal view is that we should translate into Italian every word from an English text in which there are local languages, words or slang. We should translate. I know that Amitav Ghosh stated that his novels must be translated as a whole. He writes in English. There are words in local languages,
Yes.
but he does not like to have footnotes
Yeah,
and no translations.
he's on that side.
I would agree with this request. Once, and it means 10, 20 years ago, we had in Europe, in Italy, an orientalistic way to put in italic local words. And someone used to say, you feel the flavor. Yes, but local words are not just paratha.
Does it taste like spice or mangoes?
Yes. and this is not what we are looking for from this country, from this
Right.
metropolis, from this city, from this middle class, from these persons.
Yeah.
This is not what I'm looking for, flavors, spices, and so on, and colors. And so we will try to have a translation. If in a manuscript in English there are slang words and there are Urdu words, we will try to translate them into Italian. And for sure, the local writer we will choose will interact with the translator. I tell you,
That's
I understand that being a publisher in Europe during the last 5-6 years has been very difficult, and possibly publishers have cut costs and have not taken care of their books in the way that they deserve. I'm an independent publisher. I will try to take care. I will try.
We have every confidence in you that you will, which brings me to another question that I have. Now, my book, Slum Child, is about a poor little girl in a slum. So when the cover looked like this, I thought this makes sense. But my second novel is about the history of Sindh and the politics of Sindh during the last 3 months of Benazir Bhutto's life. So I didn't quite understand why the cover looked like this. A very poor little bedraggled child in ripped clothes and not looking very clean. And I want to understand this Orientalist attitude towards book covers. Why is it that publishers felt this will sell rather than, and HM, can we see your cover? Let's take a look. I hope there's no poor little boy on that one. I don't have my glasses on, but it looks pretty good.
Yellow taxi.
Yellow taxi.
This is the British and the subcontinental edition. This is the Italian edition, and the American edition has a different cover. The American edition is the most literal, I felt.
Yeah.
This is actually somewhat abstract. It abstracts New York. But my favorite is the artist Faiza Butt produced a canvas for my British and subcontinental.
Oh, you had the same cover for the British, UK, and India. Lovely. So, loaded question,
well,
but
I just can answer you telling you that sometimes Italian authors don't understand why on their cover always there is a face, usually a face of a woman
yes.
expressing some kind of feelings and sentiments, but not only from your country, Italian authors, Italian novels shows that, and they do not know why there is this phase. What kind of relation there is? Apparently, the readers enter the bookshop and like to pick up a book with a face and some particular expression. And so publisher possibly thinks better to get better sales by that. I don't think it's the right attitude, especially, well, you can do with Italian books, but we cannot do with that book. I don't like, as you don't like this.
I didn't mind the first one, it was the second one that really
but the second one, if the second one is not representing what is in the book, and is just representing what the reader expects to come from a Pakistani writer, no. The reader must not expect something coming because he already has a concept about what is Pakistan. The readers must be surprised by what will be in the book. And so the cover will be attractive, of course, not really discovering what is in the book as it is for what is written on the fourth, on the rear cover and so on.
Yeah.
And I expect a novel from Pakistan to surprise me with something new that I don't know.
Can I ask you, who are the Pakistani authors that you already know that have been translated into Italian and that have been well received? Gianluca, if you have any favorite Pakistani authors. I know you haven't been in Pakistan very long, but...
My favorites, of course, are the ones on this stage.
Wow.
So you understand that I cannot give the same answer. So this is really bad man. But
because we have quite a few.
There are quite a few. I understand that we tend to, let's say, make a little bit of confusion, and with our award, we will try not to do, between Pakistani writers living in Pakistan, working in Pakistan, and Pakistani writers being maybe English. Just for example, Hanif Qureshi is very well known, and it is very difficult to define him Pakistani. He is a British writer. Mohsin Hamid is a Pakistani writer, although he has been living abroad, and his book, his novel, and I can say that Mohsin Hamid is the most famous in this moment.
Right.
Pakistani writer in Italy. His first novel is somehow a bridge between the West and
Yes, yes. And Amir Hussain, who just won the best French fiction prize this morning, has been translated many times into Italian.
I don't know him. I don't know
He
him.
speaks Italian too, and he goes many times. But what you said about this being a bridge, I want to actually go back to Gianluca as the diplomat, because your job is to build bridges between the two nations. And so I want to ask you, what are your thoughts on literature and diplomacy? Two very separate subjects, but how do they work together?
Well, we are trying hard in the latest years to fight this image of the diplomat who is just busy with cocktails, dinners. Diplomacy is not just...
Sounds like a novel there, which you will write after you retire.
The diplomacy of the Ferrero Rocher, which is something that, I mean, as an Italian, we appreciate. But diplomacy today has different pillars on which it should be built. Trade is one, and culture is another one. For instance, this is particularly true when you work as a consul in a city which is not the capital city. So in theory, you don't have the direct links with the government.
Yeah.
You are more inclined towards working with the people. And culture is extremely important. Trade and culture, these are the two, also as far as I'm concerned, this will be the two main areas to focus my attention while here in Karachi. As you said, I'm new. I've been here for less than 3 months, but I think this is a good way to start.
Well, you're most welcome to borrow mine or HM's book in Italian, English, whichever you prefer. We're happy to do that for you. Would you like to add any last thoughts to our discussion, which I think has been really wonderful, and I think we've opened up a lot of ideas and approached the issue in many different ways, which, you know, for a session that was meant to introduce an award, I think it's quite nice that we've been able to get deeper into the philosophy behind this award and what we hope to have happen. I, for one, am very excited about this collaboration. I have found, and I said this before, that for my novels, my novel was actually published in Italy before it was published in English. So the Italians put a lot of trust in me, which really boosted my career. And I couldn't have found a better home for those books than in Italy. And I know this because I came across an internet discussion. People had read Slum Child, which is about a girl who is Christian, from our Pakistani Christian minority. And they were arguing amongst themselves online in an internet forum about something in scripture that I had written in the book, whether it was Isaac, the son of Abraham, or Ismail, the other son of Abraham. Which one was to be sacrificed? In Christianity, it's one. In Islam, it's the other. And that was actually a point in my book where the young girl and her teacher argue. So they were arguing about this. What is true? What is false? We don't know. Let's ask the Muslims. I don't know. And I was astonished to come across this discussion. It made me really think that there is really something deeply engaging when cultures cross, when they cross through literature. And so I would just, in closing, before we do some quick questions, Q&A, I'd love to just have your last thoughts, how you feel being in Pakistan. Will it help you, you know, now that you've been here and you've met us, will it help you with your search? Gianluca, HM, if you have anything to add, please.
Well, first of all, I'm very happy to know that you have been published in Italy and it was your first translation. This was why I asked to H&M, because what I would like to stress is that the sense of this award is to open the world to a new, younger writer. There are many languages in the world. I understand that from here, from some countries in Asia, where novels are written in English, you can think, okay, it's done. English is the language in the world. No, it is not. It is not by numbers. It is not by numbers. Chinese, Arabic, Spanish is spoken in Latin America, all over. Yeah. And of course, English is the major market now. Please do expect to receive requests from China. China is a market which is exploding, and they look for writers from Asia. So submit to an agent and go on with them. Then the bridge, my knowledge about Pakistan. I have no knowledge about Pakistan, I can tell you. And the reason to start, as I used to say, to open my Pakistani file with a prize, with an award like that, is just because I wish to have Pakistani people involved in the selection. That is why we will have two juries. A first jury established here. I'm sorry, we would never disclose the name of the people. Don't expect us to tell you. A Pakistani jury able to give the Pakistani point of view and to select a short list. Out of that, we will select a book which we think can be also easily introduced in the Italian market. And I thank you, the Consul, I thank you, the festival, for the occasion for me to open the file. It's 8 years I am exploring Asia, and as I told you, I've done it with other countries before. I'm now doing with Pakistan.
Gianluca?
Yes, this is a sort of an experiment. We called it a journey, so I hope the journey will be long and that we can build on this first step.
And a technical question, when and where will we be able to see the rules for the contest? Will you have it on the website?
Yes, of course, we will have on the website, and it will be open for everybody. The submission will have to be received by the consulate,
Okay.
and then we will have the 2 different steps which were highlighted by Andrea.
So you'll keep us posted. Are there any audience members who are thinking they might be interested in doing this? Anybody? Any young writers out there aspiring? Raise your hands. Yeah, good, good. All right, you've got 3 potential entrants already. HM, any last words?
I think it's a fantastic initiative. I think there should be much more of this taking place, given that Pakistan has been producing so much prose, so much literature. This is a worthwhile initiative. I wish there was more. I also would like to suggest the opposite, that you should consider, I think, funding translations from Italian into Urdu. And there are some publishing houses here like Ajmal Kamal's Aaj Publications, which have traditionally translated literature from outside of Pakistan into Urdu. And I think that would be a great sort of symbiotic kind of relationship where we are being translated in Italy and Italians are being translated in
Bridge
Pakistan.
must go both ways. It must. It must. Thank you. Now we have about 5 minutes for any questions. If there's anybody in the audience that wants to ask anything about publishing in Italy, diplomacy in the world, writing, this is your chance. Anybody? Yes. Yes. Mike over there, please.
Sorry, I did join program a little late, so I didn't know as much what was the discussion going on. Just I want to know, as Italy reads Pakistan, it means that what am I conceiving that a writer has tried to know or has known the culture, tradition, and a number of things regarding Pakistan, and these things have been discussed in the book, I guess?
Well, this is launching an award of translation. We're searching, Mr. Barini is from a publishing house in Italy, and he's looking for an emerging Pakistani writer. So this session was to launch that prize.
Unfortunately, as I know there are a number of topics, and I have read and I have written, but unfortunately it is not possible to me to publish in Pakistani newspaper, in Pakistani printing media. So I just want to know, as a curious writer, that as I have written a much number of things, so is it going to be possible that it should be published, or it should be any type of having recommendation from Italy or in Italy?
No, it needs to be a novel that is unpublished,
All right.
or if it has been published, only in Pakistan, not abroad. But it needs to be a novel. It can't be journalism.
It means that it
can't
is
be-
going to be translated.
The prize is that you will be translated and published in Italy through Metropoli d'Asia,
All
the
right.
publishing
So
house.
for this, what am I supposed to do to contact the consulate?
What will happen is that the consulate will post the rules of the contest. So check back on their website, and it should be up shortly, I think. And then you can direct more questions to them.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. Anyone else? Yes? Is that Nasser? Yes. Hi. How are you?
Well, it was really informative discussion, and I've got a lot from the panelists, especially the translations of work that has been made in Italy by Pakistani writers. And I have recently launched my own book, and I wish it should be translated in English. And the quote was also written by Vinasha. I would like to ask you, since I'm merging into this mainstream writing profession, Naqvi Saab, what is the feeling of being a writer when you are initially? What is the hard work that you put in? Initially, you're not applauded, you're not given a good due. So how have you started and embarked on this journey? I'd like to ask you that.
We need a whole session for that, in conversation with H.M.
2
Naqvi.
minutes.
You need a second session for that.
Yes, I don't think, but just, H.M., any words of encouragement?
Yeah, I've been writing since I was a child, and I managed to configure my life in a way which would allow time. You need time. Time is critical. So I always advise people who feel that they want to seriously pursue this often very tricky profession. It's not a profession, a vocation, or mode of being. Is to take to write every day, and to write every day. You can't call yourself a writer if you aren't writing every day. And how does one do that when one is working and living and has to negotiate family and the traffic? You have to take out 1 hour a day, which is very easy. You can watch less television, you can eat quicker. 1 hour a day, and write every day. And this regime allowed me, I had to create a regime, and everybody has their own ways of going about it, but this regime allowed me to write Homeboy. The hour would become 2 hours, and then it became 3 hours, but this is the kernel of my very limited wisdom on the subject. If you write 300 words a day, in a year you'll have a novel. It takes much more than time, and it takes much more than time. You need to figure out, there's another dimension to how to construct something which you have to teach yourself. But fundamentally, in my very limited wisdom, write every day and make some time for it.
Thank you very much. We're going to wrap it up here. It's time to say goodnight. Thank you to H.M. Naqvi, to Gianluca Rubagotti, to Andrea Barini, and thanks to all of you. And thank you to the KLF volunteers in your red shirts. You make our lives much easier. Okay, everybody, good night.